online in our video library at cspan.org. House is coming in momentarily to take up a couple of bills. One would expedite the sale of federal real estate property. I want to let you know also that the budgets that were being talked about in this morning's Washington Journal, the Ryan budget has been released. We posted that on our website as well, and you can actually see the news conference of Paul Ryan and Kent Conrad, cspan.org. Now live to the House floor here on C-SPAN.
The House will be in order. The prayer will be offered by our guest chaplain, Reverend Andrew Walton, Capitol Hill Presbyterian Church, Washington, D.C. Reverend Walton.
Let us pray. On a day when leaders of Irish and American nations meet and celebrate common heritage and mutual dreams, may our spirits be united in the one Spirit. May this day bring the memory of shared anguish and struggle to stir appreciation for times when comfort and peace are our companions. May this day awaken within us wonder and imagination that inspire us beyond the confines of routine and ritual. May the contemplations, conversations, and decisions of the day be undergirded by wise thoughts, kind words, and humane actions. May we find God-given goodness within ourselves and within those whom we encounter, that we may defend and nurture the worth and dignity of every human being. May we find success on our journey. Ganairi unboharlat, meaning may the road rise with us. May the wind be always at our back. May the sun shine warm upon our face, the rains fall soft upon our fields. And until we meet again, may God hold us in the hollow of God's hand. Amen.
Amen. The Chair has examined the journal of the last day's proceedings and announces to the House his approval thereof. Pursuant to Clause 1 of Rule 1, the journal stands approved. The Pledge of Allegiance will be led by the gentleman from South Carolina, Mr. Wilson.
Everyone, including our guests in the gallery, please join in. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Under Clause 5D of Rule 20, the Chair announces to the House that in light of the resignation of the gentleman from Washington, Mr. Inslee, the whole number of the House is now 432. The Chair will entertain up to 15 requests for one-minute speeches on each side of the aisle. For what purpose does the gentleman from Texas rise?
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute.
Without objection. The gentleman is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, as the bagpipes played in the background, the black cloth of sacrifice was draped over the badges of Houston first responders yesterday. Senior Captain Thomas Bill Dillon of the Houston Fire Department was rushing into a house fire on March the 14th when he apparently died of a heart attack. Captain Dillon was 49 years of age and 23 years with the Houston Fire Department. He had 3 children. With somber respect, hundreds of Texas firefighters, police officers, emergency medical technicians, and citizens attended his funeral. Mr. Speaker, 300 firefighters from other towns in Texas volunteered their time to fill in at Houston Fire Department stations so Houston firefighters could attend the funeral. Firefighters are a family of dedicated, loyal public servants. Captain Dillon and other firefighters spend their lives rescuing people they do not know and protecting property they have never seen from fire. Most of us flee danger. Firefighters rush to the smell of smoke and the heat of danger. Bill's crew at Station 69 spoke yesterday about him, saying he was a devout Christian, had a contagious happy mood, loved to fish, and of course liked country music. Captain Dillon and his fellow firefighters are a remarkable breed, a rare breed, the American breed. We thank them one and all, and that's just the way it is. I yield back.
For what purpose the gentlewoman from California rise? Gentlewoman is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This week marks the second anniversary of the Affordable Care Act legislation that makes quality health care more affordable to everyone. March is also Women's History Month, so I'd like to talk about how this act affects women's health. And I believe that instead of just imposing government mandates on health care for women, I believe the Affordable Care Act empowers women and their families. Because the Affordable Care Act bans insurance companies from requiring women to obtain authorization before getting OB/GYN care. And the Affordable Care Act keeps insurance companies from denying coverage for conditions such as breast or cervical cancer, pregnancy, having had a C-section, or being the victim of domestic violence. And it ends the practice of gender rating, so women will no longer be charged higher rates for simply being a woman. And the Affordable Care Act does all of this while preserving Americans the right to choose their own doctor and the health coverage that they want. Women's health, Americans' health, it's better because of the Affordable Health Care Act. I yield my balance of my time.
For what purpose the gentleman from Louisiana rise? The gentleman is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, since this administration took office, the price of gasoline has more than doubled. In January of 2009, the national average price for a gallon of gasoline was $1.79. Today, that same gallon of gasoline will set you back $3.84. Yet this administration continues to let election year politics dictate policy. Since 2010, I have led the charge in fighting President Obama's assault on offshore drilling. The moratorium, a knee-jerk reaction by Washington liberals, harmed many local oil and gas producers on the Gulf Coast. According to a recent study conducted by the Louisiana State University, the moratorium resulted in the loss of 8,000 Gulf State jobs and $487 million in lost wages. And to make matters worse, the administration continues to push higher taxes on American independent energy producers, leading to higher costs and higher unemployment rates. The past 3 years were marred with poor decisions relating to domestic energy production, with consequences falling directly on South Louisiana families. Now's the time to promote sensible energy policies that put Americans back to work while fully utilizing the resources we have right here at home. I yield back.
What purpose does the gentlelady from Ohio rise? The gentlewoman is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the National Women's Law Center recently reported that 90% of the best-selling health plans charge women more than men for the same coverage. In addition, insurers have classified millions of women as having pre-existing conditions because of a previous cesarean section or having been pregnant, even for being a victim of domestic violence. For decades, women have unfairly been charged excessive costs for their health care. Well, that changes now. Because of the Affordable Care Act, the discriminatory practice known as gender rating, or charging women more than men for care, will be prohibited starting in 2014. And women in private plans can obtain free life-saving procedures such as mammograms and colonoscopies. The Affordable Care Act bans insurance companies from imposing lifetime limits on care, so Americans will not go bankrupt simply because they are trying to be healthy. And in 2014, because of health care reform, women cannot be denied access because of a pre-existing condition. There is no better time than today to stand up and demand quality accessible health care for women. I yield back.
For what purpose does the gentleman from South Carolina rise?
Consent to address the House for 1 minute, advising extend my remarks.
The gentleman is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, over the past month, the price of gas per gallon has increased by 31 cents, with an average cost of $3.83 per gallon. This weekend, the President said that his administration could not do much to provide relief at the pump. But actually, earlier, he promised to increase energy costs, which destroys jobs. The President also claims to support an all-of-the-above energy plan. However, due to his decision to reject the Keystone Pipeline, it is clear these claims are not being fulfilled. The President's solution to help with rising energy costs is to delay smog regulations that will mandate that more sulfur be stripped from gasoline. The delay of this policy will not lower prices, but simply keep them from increasing due to more government regulation. I urge the President to work with House Republicans and begin enacting policies which will help Americans feel relief at the pump. In conclusion, God bless our troops, and we will never forget September 11th and the global war on terrorism.
What purpose does the gentleman from Connecticut rise? The gentleman is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this week the National Women's Law Center issued a report, an online survey of insurance brokers across the country, and what they found is something that every woman who owns a small business or tries to buy a policy in the individual market knows, which is that 90% of the best-selling insurance plans charge women more than men simply because of the fact that they are women. This is a fact which is not denied by any of the major insurers, Blue Cross, WellPoint, Humana, who were all interviewed in a story in the New York Times a few days ago on this issue. This is not a debating point. This is a fact. In addition to higher costs, many insurance companies in some jurisdictions around this country deny women coverage entirely because of conditions which are characteristics of women's, which is breast or cervical cancer, pregnancy, having a C-section, or even being a victim of domestic violence. As I said earlier, the Affordable Care Act will abolish all of these barbaric, discriminatory practices starting in 2014. We're going to hear a lot of hooting and hollering this week about repealing Obamacare, but those people who say that should look women in the eye in this country and tell them, what are you going to do to end these discriminatory practices? And the fact of the matter is they have no answer. It is time to stand up for this act, and I yield back the balance of my time.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Maryland rise?
Request permission to address the House for 1 minute.
The gentleman is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, as a physician, you know that buried deep in the President's 2,000-page health care bill was the Independent Payment Advisory Board, the IPAB, an unelected, unaccountable 15-member rationing board appointed by the President for the sole purpose of cutting Medicare. Who will the 15 members of the board be? Well, the law actually forbids them from being active health care providers. It only allows 7 members of the board to even have a health care provider background. In short, a majority of the board will be composed of people who have no experience in actually caring for patients. Patients across the country, especially those in rural areas like my district, are already struggling to find physicians who will accept new Medicare patients. The IPAB will only make this worse. If Medicare beneficiaries are lucky enough to find a physician who will see them, the IPAB will place a government rationing bureaucrat between them and their physician. That government bureaucrat has no place in the physician-patient relationship in America. We need to repeal the IPAB now. I yield back the balance of my time.
For what purpose does the gentleman from New York rise? The gentleman is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, the Bethlehem Steel Plant in Lackawanna, New York was once the center of western New York's industrial economy, employing thousands of people. Tragically, these workers were unknowingly exposed to toxic uranium dust and high levels of radiation, leaving many suffering from cancer and other health problems. Thanks to the efforts of the employees' families, Congress established a program to compensate former Bethlehem Steel employees for their illnesses. However, this process is a difficult one to navigate. I am proud to have worked with the individual families and helped countless of them to receive the compensation they are owed. But, Mr. Speaker, there is still more to be done. There are families who deserve to be compensated for their suffering, and that's why I, along with New York Senators Chuck Schumer and Kirsten Gillibrand, are calling on the National Institute of Occupational Safety and Health to expand the eligibility period. Mr. Speaker, Western New Yorkers have long been recognized as some of the most dedicated in this country. I will not rest until those who who worked so hard for Bethlehem Steel are compensated for the undeserved suffering. I yield back the balance of my time.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Georgia rise? The gentleman is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I thank you. Mr. Speaker, you've heard on our side of the aisle this morning a number of members talk about saving Medicare and protecting our precious seniors. What we're wanting to save them from is the most egregious aspect of Obamacare, and that's called the IPAB law. That 15-member bureaucrat agency that's going to actually come between a doctor and his or her patient and interfere with that sacrosanct doctor-patient relationship and make decisions to cut and slash their Medicare opportunity to see their doctor. This is not the way to fix Medicare, Mr. Speaker. We know how to fix Medicare, and we will talk about that in our budget this year, as we did last year. But we must strike down this egregious section of this 2,700-page bill, and we will do that this week. With that, Mr. Speaker, I yield back the balance of my time.
For what purpose does the gentlelady from Florida rise? The gentlelady is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Let's get to the facts on women's health care under the Affordable Care Act, which is 2 years old this week. First, good news. The Affordable Care Act outlaws discrimination in co-payments and premiums for the same coverage based on gender. See, women have generally been charged more for health insurance. A recent report shows that more than 90% of the best-selling health plans still charge women more than men for the same coverage. The Affordable Care Act ends that discrimination. Second, women can no longer be denied coverage by an HMO or health insurance company because they have a pre-existing condition like breast cancer that's in remission, or they had a C-section when they delivered their child, or even injuries from domestic violence. 3, women no longer have to jump through the bureaucratic hoop of obtaining permission to see their OB/GYN. 4, and because prevention works and saves money, women in new health insurance plans will automatically be covered for screenings, mammograms, colonoscopies, and birth control. Finally, health insurance companies can no longer cancel your policy if you get sick. These are important consumer protections for women across America, for our mothers, for our daughters, and for our families.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Tennessee rise?
Address the House for 1 minute.
The gentleman is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, because the President cannot stand by his record of failed policies and broken promises, he has resorted to the politics of envy and division, all in the name of fairness. However, is it fair that to pay for his health care bill, President Obama cut $500 billion from Medicare, thereby threatening seniors and their access to health care? As a doctor for over 20 years, I know how important Medicare is to our seniors. That's why I'm proud to join House Republicans this week in introducing a bill to eliminate the new Medicare Rationing Board created in Obamacare. While President Obama thinks 15 unelected Washington bureaucrats should decide the value of medical services, my fellow physicians and I believe that power should remain between the nation's doctors and their patients. 15 unelected bureaucrats, that's one crowded exam room. Let us pass this bill and get rid of this health care law that we didn't ask for, we can't afford, and we just plain don't want. I yield back.
For what purpose does the gentlewoman from California rise? Recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to join my colleagues in speaking up about women's health. As we approach the anniversary of the passage of the Affordable Care Act, I want to remind all of us about some of the challenges that women have faced before health reform was signed into law. Well, before health reform was signed into law, insurance companies could deny coverage to women due to so-called pre-existing conditions like cancer or even simply having been pregnant. Insurance companies could force women to pay more for their coverage simply because of their gender. And now, thanks to the Affordable Care Act, women will be able to see their OB/GYN without a referral. You've heard that repeatedly today because that's critical and important to women. Women will have access to critical preventative services like birth control with no out-of-pocket costs, and that ultimately saves health care expenses. Already, hundreds of men and women from all across San Diego have shared with me how important affordable access to contraception is for them and for their families. They can't afford to have it stripped away by this Congress. I urge my colleagues to build on these reforms to ensure that all women have equal access to health care.
For what purpose does the gentleman from American Samoa rise?
Speaker, I ask unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute to extend and revise my remarks.
The gentleman is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, in the 2 years since President Obama signed the Affordable Health Care into law, millions of Americans have already experienced firsthand its important benefits and the economic security it provides. Because of President Obama's bold reforms, Medicare is now stronger for seniors, and women can now get life-saving mammograms at no extra cost. Children won't lose their coverage just because they were born with preconditions like asthma. Altogether, families across the nation are seeing how health reform is saving lives and saving money. For example, 86 million Americans have received free preventive health care, and 180 million are now protected from some of the worst health insurance abuses. An additional 2.5 million young adults now have health insurance. 47 million Americans now benefit from a stronger Medicare program. Now prescription drug discounts have saved 3.6 million Medicare recipients an average of $600. Mr. Speaker, President Obama's landmark health care reforms are already helping millions of Americans save lives and live healthier lives. I commend President Obama for making tough decisions that have given more health Americans access to affordable, quality health care program. And I yield back.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Georgia rise?
To address this august body for 1 minute and revise and extend my remarks.
The gentleman is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We lead busy lives here, and I don't want to blame my colleagues for being forgetful, nor do I want to accuse anyone of just not caring. But I do have to remind the House that before the health care law, insurance companies were free to discriminate against women, and they did so with reckless abandon. Women were charged 50% more than men for the same insurance coverage, and pregnancy could be considered a pre-existing condition. Reform ends this discrimination, but unfortunately many in Congress and the campaign trail, people on the campaign trail, they have forgotten the past, and they seem to be determined to repeal it. Reform put women in control of their health, and shame on those who put insurance companies back in charge. I yield back.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Texas rise?
To address the House for 1 minute to revise and extend my remarks.
The gentleman is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise today to give a great expression of gratitude to the Clooney family. Mr. George Clooney and his father, Nick, were among the many who were arrested on Friday, March the 16th, protesting over at the Sudanese embassy. I am saluting them and grateful to them because not only of what they did that day, but what Mr. Clooney did when he went into Sudan at some considerable risk, I might add, to secure evidence of what was taking place there and what is taking place. And those who would like to see some of the evidence can go to www.enoughproject.org. You can actually see the video. I believe what he has done and those others who were arrested, I think that it merits having a flag flown over the Capitol. We will fly a flag over the Capitol in honor of those who participated in the protest movement. I yield back the balance of my time.
Pursuant to Clause 8 of Rule 20, the Chair will postpone further proceedings today on motions to suspend the rules on which a recorded vote or the yeas and nays are ordered, or on which the vote incurs objection under Clause 6 of Rule 20. Record votes on postponed questions will be taken later today. For what purpose does the gentleman from Utah seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, I move that the House suspend the rules and pass H.R. 665 as amended.
The clerk will report the title of the bill.
H.R. 665, a bill to establish a pilot program for the expedited disposal of federal real property.
Pursuant to the rule, the gentleman from Utah, Mr. Chaffetz, and the gentleman from Illinois, Mr. Quigley, each will control 20 minutes. The chair now recognizes the gentleman from Utah.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield myself such time as I may consume.
The gentleman is recognized.
I ask unanimous consent that all members may have 5 legislative days within which to revise and extend their remarks and include extraneous materials on the bill under consideration.
Without objection.
Mr. Speaker, H.R. 665, the Excess Federal Building and Property Disposal Act of 2012, was favorably reported by voice vote on the Committee on Oversight and Government Reform in November of last year. And I'm proud to be one of the sponsors of this bill. There are 39 co-sponsors of this bill, and in particular I want to thank my colleague, the gentleman from Illinois, Mr. Quigley, for his great and passionate work on this, Mr. Conley, Ms. Norton. There are a number of people on both sides of the aisle that have passionately worked on this issue, and I'm proud to report, Mr. Speaker, that this is very bipartisan in its nature. I also want to thank our chairman, Chairman Issa, who was very instrumental in this passing out of committee to the floor, as well as Ranking Member Cummings, and certainly our Majority Leader, Mr. Cantor, for allowing and encouraging this bill to come to the floor. So I appreciate the bipartisan nature. These are the types of things that we should be doing as a body to make sure that we're improving the process and streamlining the disposal of real property that happens in this country. Most are somewhat amazed to understand that our federal government has roughly 900,000 buildings and structures under its ownership. The GAO in 2011 estimated that the federal government holds 45,000 underutilized properties that cost nearly $1.7 billion annually in order to operate. And again, these are underutilized. In fact, more recently, the OMB Comptroller, Daniel Werfel, testified before the Senate subcommittee that the government controls 14,000 excess and 76,000 underutilized buildings and structures. That's going to happen when you consume and have so many federal buildings. We have to make sure that we as a government are also streamlining and moving forward with the disposal of these properties when they become something that is not as frequently used. The federal government has accumulated excess properties because the disposal process is in many ways flawed. In 2003 and in 2011, the GAO designated federal real property management as a high-risk area to the federal government. Thus, I think as an independent group, going out, looking and assessing the situation and coming to the conclusion that we as a federal government, this is a high-risk area, costs well over $1 billion a year, starting to approach $2 billion a year. Certainly it's in need of some restructuring. So the Excess Federal Building and Property Disposal Act would streamline the disposal of high-valued properties while also overhauling the existing disposal process. Bill creates a 5-year pilot program that would expedite the disposal of federal properties with the goal of maximizing profit. 98% of the proceeds under the pilot would be directed to the United States Treasury General Fund, and 2% would be authorized for use by homeless assistance providers. It's been in the history of this House and this government in the past. The bill also permanently streamlines the existing disposal process by reducing administrative overhead, creating new agency incentives, and requiring greater transparency and accountability from the federal agencies. Again, this bill is bipartisan. It will direct revenue to the United States Treasury. It reduces operating and maintenance budgets. It's presented in a bipartisan way. And, Mr. Speaker, I would encourage all of my colleagues to support this bill. The nature and the approach that we're taking here, I think, is just good government to make it smarter, more streamlined, more efficient, and move the ball in the right direction. So at this time, I'd like to reserve the balance of my time, Mr. Speaker.
The gentleman from Utah reserves. The gentleman from Illinois is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I yield myself such time as I may consume.
The gentleman is recognized.
I want to thank the chairman of the full committee, Mr. Issa, for his staunch support of this bill. And I also want to thank my good friend, Mr. Chaffetz, for working so closely with us to craft this bipartisan bill and working to get it to the floor today. Finally, I want to thank the ranking member of the full committee, Mr. Cummings, for working with me on this important bill. There could not be a better time to move a measure like this one through the Congress. We are facing an unsustainable budget deficit and must get our fiscal house in order. One of the best ways to achieve much-needed reductions in spending is to create efficiencies and cut waste. This is exactly what this bipartisan measure accomplishes. The federal government is the largest property owner in the world, with an inventory over 900,000 buildings and structures and 41 million acres of land. Yet we waste billions of tax dollars each year maintaining properties we no longer need. The federal government currently maintains 14,000 buildings and structures deemed excess and over 76,000 properties identified as underutilized. In fiscal year 2009, these underutilized buildings cost us $1.7 billion to operate annually. The GAO has continuously found that many properties are no longer relevant to their agency's missions, and that agencies could do a better job of identifying and disposing of unneeded properties. H.R. 665, as amended, will finally give agencies the tools they need to quickly and efficiently dispose of unneeded federal properties, resulting in huge savings to the government. First, H.R. 665 creates a 5-year pilot program to expedite the sale of unused, high-value properties. The Office of Management and Budget, also with the GAO, General Services Administration, will work with agencies to dispose of 15 high-value properties. This list of properties for disposal will be a rolling list, meaning as properties are sold, additional properties will be added to the list for disposal. 98% of the proceeds from the sale of these high-value properties will go straight to the Treasury for deficit reduction, while 2% will be set aside for a grant to fund homeless assistance programs. In addition to the 5-year pilot, H.R. 665, as amended, modernizes the existing property disposal process and removes barriers to disposal. H.R. 665 empowers GSA to provide agencies with much-needed technical expertise to dispose of unused and unneeded properties. The bill also allows all agencies to use the proceeds generated from the sale of property as authorized by Congress to cover the cost of disposal. Currently, property disposal costs can be hugely expensive. Without the ability to use the proceeds of a sale to cover the cost of disposal, agencies have little incentive to dispose of these properties. Any funds not used to prepare and dispose of property would be paid to the Treasury for debt reduction. H.R. 665, as amended, will also provide unprecedented transparency and accountability to the federal government's property portfolio. The bill will require GSA to report to Congress annually on the number, value, and maintenance costs of all federal properties. And this information will be made available to the public at no cost in an online database. Finally, this bipartisan bill reforms our property disposal process without creating a new bureaucracy and at no cost to the federal government. H.R. 665, as amended, passed unanimously through the Oversight and Government Reform Committee. I encourage my colleagues to support this common-sense bill designed to improve government efficiency and save the taxpayers billions. And again, I want to thank Mr. Chavis for his good work on a bipartisan effort toward this extraordinary bill. I yield back the balance of my time.
The gentleman from Illinois yields back. The gentleman from Utah.
Mr. Speaker, I have no additional speakers. I just want to simply thank the gentleman from Illinois. He's truly one who will stand on principle and work on both sides of the aisle, and for that we're very grateful and appreciative. This is what we are supposed to be doing, and working in a bipartisan way. H.R. 665, as amended, is a good bill. It's good government. It's something we should do, and I would urge all of my colleagues to support it. Appreciate all the support from our leadership in making this point happen. With that, Mr. Speaker, I will yield back.
All time has been yielded. The question is, will the House suspend the rules and pass H.R. 665 as amended? Those in favor say aye, and those opposed no.
Mr.
In
Speaker,
the opinion
Mr. Speaker.
In the opinion of the Chair, 2/3 being in the affirmative, the rules are suspended and the bill is passed. The gentleman from Utah.
Mr. Speaker, I ask for the yeas and nays.
The yeas and nays are requested. All those in favor of taking this vote by the yeas and nays will rise and remain standing until counted. a sufficient number having risen, the yeas and nays are ordered. Pursuant to Clause 8 of Rule 20, further proceedings on this question will also be postponed. Pursuant to Clause 12A of Rule 1, the House will stand in recess, subject to the call of the Chair.
The House taking a